Stimulus checks work. How Biden created an economic boom, more coming. The great news for the U.S. economy continues. After positive numbers first for retail sales in March and later on GDP in April, the government released a report at the end of April showing that personal incomes have risen as well. Personal income increased $4.21 trillion, 21.1% in March, the Bureau of Economic Advisers said in an April 30 report. In addition, the report said, disposable personal income increased $4.18 trillion, 23.6%, and personal consumption expenditures increased $616.0 billion, 4.2%. The 21.1% increase was a record for that particular measure, even after personal income dropped in February. The 21.1% March surge in income was the largest monthly increase for government records tracing back to 1959, largely reflecting $1,400 stimulus checks included in President Biden's fiscal relief package signed into law in March, the Wall Street Journal said. The stimulus payments accounted for $3.948 trillion of the overall seasonally adjusted $4.213 trillion rise in March personal income. The stimulus checks from the American Rescue Plan, the report said, had a lot to do with the big number. The increase in personal income in March largely reflected an increase in government's Social Benefits Bureau of Economic Advisers said. Within government social benefits, other social benefits increased. The American Rescue Plan Act established an additional round of direct economic impact payments to households. According to Reuters, the arrival of the stimulus checks is beginning to unleash pent-up demand. While we aren't completely out of the woods yet, today's report shows the beginning of an economic rebound, Brendan Coughlin, head of consumer banking at Citizens in Boston, said of the report, per Reuters. Assuming no setback in the continued rollout of the vaccines, U.S. consumers are well positioned in the second half of the year to stimulate strong economic growth across the country. Is inflation a concern with this rapid economic growth? Economists and others have given different opinions on that. Fed Chairman Jerome Powell has mostly said that such concerns are likely temporary, rather than a long-term concern. While labor costs are hardly getting out of hand, there is clearly more wage pressure in the economy at present than the early stages of the past cycle, Sarah House, a senior economist at Wells Fargo in Charlotte, North Carolina, told Reuters. Stronger labor cost growth even before the economy hits full employment is a reason to think that even after the reopening fueled pop this year, inflation is likely to settle above the anemic rate of the past cycle. It's all part of what's expected to be a period of sustained economic growth as the pandemic recedes and the associated restrictions are lifted. Stimulus check update, some good news and potential bad news about $1,400 checks. Stimulus checks made a huge impact on household income, but the news isn't all good. When President Joe Biden signed the American Rescue Plan Act in March, the law entitled most American families to receive a stimulus check valued at $1,400 per person including dependents. This was the largest of the three stimulus payments that the government has issued to date in response to COVID-19. The money has made a huge impact. In fact, economists expect that household income in March may have increased by the largest amount ever recorded. That's the good news. But there's also some potential bad news on the horizon. Here's what you need to know. Stimulus checks propel record income increase. Most Americans received their stimulus payments either as a deposit into their bank accounts or via check in March or early April. As a result of this substantial influx in government funds, economists project that household income rose around 20% in March of 2021 compared with the prior month. Household income is a measure that includes money from multiple sources. It includes not just earnings from work, but also government benefits and money earned from investments. If this 20% income projection bears out, this would be the largest monthly increase in income since the government began keeping records in 1959. Unsurprisingly, this has also driven up consumer spending, with economists projecting a 4% increase in consumer expenditures. People who received stimulus checks increased total consumer spending more with the third check than with either of the first two. This is likely because this check was for more money and because there was more to spend it on now that restrictions on business operations have eased considerably since the first two checks were signed into law. While it's generally a good thing for individuals to see their incomes go up and a good thing for the economy when more consumers start spending money, this can lead to a rise in inflation. Inflation occurs when prices rise in response to a surge in demand that businesses struggle to keep up with. When inflation occurs, purchasing power falls because prices are higher and the same dollar can't buy as many goods and services. Unfortunately, some key economic indicators, including a personal consumer's expenditures index that excludes food and energy prices, suggest that inflation is rising. That's not a great thing, especially for savers, because it means their money won't go as far. Although the potential of rising inflation could be bad news, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, believes that the one-time price increases that happen when demand surges as the economy reopens will just be a temporary thing and inflation won't continue rising. Powell also indicated that the Federal Reserve will be working to make sure that doesn't happen. For consumers, of course, there's little that individuals can do to fight inflation. But if you haven't spent your stimulus check yet, it may not be a bad idea to put some in the bank in case the cost of goods and services does go up over the summer and beyond and you need a little extra cash to help you get by.